chat up.
Okay, we'll give people a couple minutes to filter in, I think.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing? Want to say hello? Make sure your chat is open if you don't mind. And while we're waiting for everybody to get in here, why don't you give us a hello and tell us where you're joining us from. So many people. Oh my gosh. Austria, Florida, India, Austin, New Hampshire, Indiana. I'm in Indiana. I'm in Fishers. Wow, all over the world. Well, welcome everybody. So happy to have you here. This is great.
Awesome. Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Saturday for another Michael's virtual classroom. Today's class is in celebration of I Love Yarn Day, where Michael's has been hosting knit and crochet classes all day long to celebrate. My name is Bianca from yarnspirations.com, and I am here with your host today, Marley Bird. Marley's going to be teaching us how to crochet the Caron hands-full crochet mittens using Caron 1 pound yarn. I'll be in the chat helping you answer any questions you might have, but just a heads up that this class is being recorded. So if at any point you find us going too fast or you'd like to rewatch any part of the video is going to be posted on michaels.com/classes on Monday. Mm-hmm. So with that all being said, I'll pass it over to Marley to get started.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. I know that some of you were coming into the room still as I was saying, why don't you make sure your chat is open, you say hello, let us know where you're joining us from. I am thrilled to be asked by Michaels and Yarn Inspirations to join all of you today to be your crochet instructor. Super thrilled to be here. I am a knitting and crochet designer and teacher on YouTube, and I travel the country teaching, and I write books, and I do all sorts of things. So it's always nice to be able to come on here and share the love of yarn, especially on I Love Yarn Day, which I was joking around earlier with some people that it's like, is it every day I Love Yarn Day? It's like, absolutely it is, but today we get to really like shout it from the rooftops and sit on our front porch with our yarn and just tell people, you know, hey, I'm having a great day, right? Okay, so we are going to make as much as we can crochet mittens today. And this is a free pattern. I'm pretty sure that they have put a link in the chat for you. And somebody told me earlier it was in another location, but I've already forgot. So get it in the chat. I see it right there. It's a Google Doc, so you should be able to get it pretty easily. It looks a little something like this. And this pattern is made up for a toddler, for a kid, and an adult size. So there's 3 different sizes for you to follow along with. So this really is a pattern that you can make for practically anybody in your family. So if you're looking for something quick to whip up during the holiday season, this is a good start for you to do that. Each of these sizes, no matter which one you're doing, uses 1 ball of Caron 1 pound yarn. And I will tell you with confidence that it's not going to take up the whole ball of yarn. So you absolutely can make several different pairs of mittens with the 1 ball of yarn if you choose to do that. All right, guys. We are going to I'm going to use a larger hook today just so that you can better see my stitches, but the hook recommended for this pattern is a size 7 or 4.5 millimeter hook. I'm going to be using a size 8 or an H or a 5 millimeter hook. It's a basic Susan Bates hook, and I know you guys are gonna ask, so I'm gonna hit the nail on the head. This is a special handle that I have on my hook that I got from Etsy, and the only reason I crochet a lot and I get cramps if I don't have a handle. So it's just a basic crochet hook, just has a handle, all right? I'm going to be using 2 different colors of yarn, one just to get started, and then I have a couple of step outs that I've already worked up so that we can jump into it. I will remind you again, this is a recorded class, so I'm going to move along as quickly as I can to try and get through everything that we can. And if there's something that I might have said and you missed it, just know that you can go back and watch the recording later on. All right, so are you all ready to go? Give me a thumbs up. Yep. Awesome. Thank you, Shirley. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to my hands and make sure that that is transferred over. Perfect. Okay, so if you don't know how to read a pattern, the first thing I want to mention is, again, it comes in 3 different sizes. And one of the great things about Yarn Inspirations patterns is they color code the sizes. So if you are able to print your piece off with color, great, you have some colors here. If not, one thing you can always do is get yourself a highlighter. So this is a pink highlighter, and you can go and highlight the numbers that pertain to the size you're making. So if you're making the toddler size, that would be the number outside of the parentheses. If you're making the kid size, that would be the first number inside the parentheses. And if you're making the adult size, it'd be the second number inside the parentheses, okay? I have worked up swatches today for the adult size. I don't know why, I probably should have done the kid size, but I just wasn't thinking. So we're gonna start off down here at the bottom, and we start off with the cup, all right? So I'm gonna move this out of the way just so I can still see it, hopefully. Let's put it over here. And I'm just grabbing some yarn. Can everybody see this all right? Give me a thumbs up, yeah? Perfect. We're gonna begin with a slip knot. So I place the tail in the palm of my hand, and I always leave at least 4 to 6 inches of tail so I have something to weave in later. Take your working yarn, wrap it around your forefinger and middle finger, and when you come back up, cross over. Rotate your hand. Then if you take your hook, go underneath that front loop and grab that back one, you can just pop right off. And we've created a slip knot. Now, there's many ways to create a slip knot. If that's not your preferred way, totally fine. Do what works best for you. We place that slip knot directly onto our hook, and we will begin. I'm going to chain 14 because this would be the adult size. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Once you've done that, we're going to single crochet in the second chain from hook. And for those of you who don't know, you never count the loop on your hook as a stitch. So you would always count from below the hook. So there was one, here's the second one, you kind of see that V. I'm gonna stick my hook just right in the center of that V and work a single crochet. I'm gonna do that into the next chain. And in all of the chains, all the way to the end. Now on this first row here, we're working through the chain. We're not really stressing about whether we work through the back bump or the front bump or the what I call the butt of the chain. We're just going through the chain to get these stitches in place, right? But when we make the rest of the cuff, we're going to work in the back loop only. And what that will do is give us a nice crochet ribbing look for the cuff, and it makes it really nice and neat. So I'm going to get down here to the end of these stitches. And because I started with 14, I will have 13 single crochets because we skipped that first one, okay? So here we go. And we just did single crochets all the way down. So this would be the cuff. So like we're going to join up here at this point. So that would be the size of your cuff. You with me? All right. I'm going to grab a stitch marker here. I'm going to go ahead and chain 1 and turn, or you can turn and chain 1. It doesn't really matter. Now, typically, when you're working along a piece like this, usually you're looking just like this. You find where that first stitch is, right? And you just go into it just like so, underneath both loops. But because we want to create a ribbing, we're going to essentially kind of tilt up our work. So we're looking at the tops of these stitches. And if this is the front loop and that is the back loop, or you can think of this is the front leg and that is the back leg, we want to go into the back loop only. So I'm going to go into that back loop only and single crochet. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. Then I'm going to do that again in the next one. So I'm going to go into the back loop only, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, right? So it's just a basic single crochet, but we're going into the back loop only. Everybody see that all right? Hopefully you're doing pretty okay. And what this does, as you create this pattern, we're leaving that front loop open. And so that's what kind of gives us that rib look, okay? We're going to just keep single crocheting through all of these stitches. Now you're going to get a lot of practice as you're working through this ribbing because there's quite a few rows that you have to work up, because remember, you're making this to be the size around your hand. So for the pattern, it says that you are going to work this cuff until it measures 5.5 inches if you're making the toddler size, 5 inches if you're making the kid size, and 7 inches if you're making the adult size. When you reach the end of the row, you can chain 1 and turn. And then once again, we're going to repeat row 2. So I kind of tilt my work up. I'm going to go into the back loop only of that first stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. Now I did grab a stitch marker here, and I wanted to do this for those of you who have a hard time getting to the end of your rows. If you have a hard time knowing where the end of your row is, what you can do is after you complete your first stitch, take your stitch marker and just place it through, I like to put it through both legs of that first stitch, okay? All right, so I'm just placing it right there into that first stitch. What that tells me, when I come back down here, that'll be the last stitch of my row. And then I'll just move that up along the way as I go, okay? So it's a great way to make sure you know where the last stitch of your row is. And I'm going to go ahead and add one down here just so you can see how it actually works up when you use it. And while I'm getting the stitch marker, I'm going to ask Bianca how everything's going. Everybody doing all right?
We're doing pretty well here.
Okay.
We just have a question of how do you know what size? So if we're giving this these mittens as a gift, how would you kind of determine which size to make?
You know what? So the adult size is a 1 size. So if you're making it for an adult, it's just 1 size. The toddler size, you know, it's age 2 to 4. So you just kind of have to guesstimate if you have a pretty average size kid. If they're about 2 to 4 years old, then you know what size to make them. The good news is it's really not too difficult to make them a little bit longer should you want to. Just work them a little bit longer in the mitten portion. But you kind of have to play around with that as you're just working them up. So I'm coming down here. Obviously you guys saw that I marked that stitch after the fact, but I can come down here and say, oh, look, that's my last stitch. I can go into the back loop only, make sure I don't go through 2 of them, and work my single crochet. And I know for a fact that even though that little bump right there looks like it might be a stitch, I don't want to work into it, okay? So I would go ahead and chain 1 and turn, single crochet in the back loop only again, and this is where I would undo this stitch marker and just bring it up. You see how that works up? Everybody understand how the stitch markers work? I thought it was important to point those out just so if you're having trouble keeping the correct stitch count, those will help you out immensely, okay? All right, so I'm going to move on because you will continue just repeating row 2. What I just showed you, you keep repeating that until your mitten, if this is the adult size, measures about 7 inches or 18 centimeters for those of you who are in other parts of the world, okay? So that's what it looks like. See what I mean about it looking like a ribbing pattern? And it has some really good stretch to it also, okay? So you wanna make sure that you are not getting 7 inches with it completely stretched out, otherwise it's never really gonna fit, right? You want it to be sort of nice and kind of comfortable there, and then you have your 7 inches. It's at this point you are not going to fasten off your work. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to bring my foundation edge, this was the chain edge I did, I'm bringing it up to butt up to the edge that I'm on right now, okay? I'm gonna tighten up my loop here. Sorry, I had all this on hold. I can't seem to get a hold of the yarn very well. Okay, so I'm at the edge. I'm going to chain 1 and still working through the back loop only here. I'm gonna go through my back loop here But then on my chain edge here, right there, I'm going to go into the loop that was hanging out that I didn't work into when I was doing my initial single crochets into the chain. And I'm going to slip stitch it together. Now I'll go to the next one. I'll go to the back loop only, go into the next stitch. See that? Yarn over and draw through 2. Back loop only, next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and draw through 2. You see that, guys? So what we're doing here is we're seaming together the cuff without having to actually sew it. And this is all written in the pattern. What's really great about patterns like this, y'all, is all the information you need, from the amount of yarn, the size of your hook, the size of each pattern, or of each of this different sizes. That made a lot of sense, right? The size of the different sizes. And then all of the different distances you would work up each of the patterns are all written up in the pattern itself. So make sure you do click that link to get that Google Doc. That's provided in the chat. You'll notice I'm just doing this all the way down, and it's just going to join and make a cuff. You see that? Now here's the cool thing. You could stop right here and bingo, you have a coffee cuff, you guys. So if you're like, I need a quick gift, you just made something really fun and easy for somebody in your life, all right? Now at this point, the pattern says, do not fasten off, okay? It says, turn your work and proceed as follows. Well, here's the deal. We could technically leave our work like this and leave the seam on the outside because it doesn't look too terribly bad, right? It looks almost invisible. But what we also could do is turn this so it's this way. And then I want you to see, there's our seam right there. Again, it's also invisible. You see that? So you really could do it either way, all right? But that's where we are. I'm gonna tuck in my tail here. And it's at this point that we're going to begin to build stitches around the cuff we've already built, okay? Isn't that cool? All right, so you get the bang for your buck, y'all. So now you know how to make like a coffee cozy if you wanted to make one. It's at this point we would carry on and we would start to work our stitches around the cuff. So we will start off with a chain 1. And remember, I told you I'm making the larger size. So I'm going to single crochet 28 single crochets all the way around this cuff. Now what I like to do is put 1 single crochet into the end of each row. And then if I find like maybe I need to put 2 into 1 row as I'm coming up to the end, I'll do that. Just single crochet as evenly as possible. And so I'm just literally just going into each row, just going around the actual stitch, because it doesn't really matter. Right here, I like that big hole there. It just like, it's calling to me. It's like, all right, put your stitch here. So I put it there and then just carry on. And then you just want to make sure you get 28 single crochets. So I'm not going to count as I'm going through this one. I'm just going to just keep going and get around so I can show you how this works up. All right. And this is one of those things that, you know, it doesn't have to be like super absolutely perfectly even, but if you are putting 1 stitch at the end of each row, it makes it, you know, pretty easy to work up just like so. And as you're working around, let me get some more yarn here. You can always go back at the end and count how many stitches you have. If you're like me and you like to talk as you're single crocheting and you absolutely lose count, okay? All right. One of the beautiful things about crochet is that, you know, it's very flexible in the sense of, you know, you could have 1 more row or 1 fewer rows than what might be written in the pattern, and it's usually pretty all right. It's kind of fudge things along. When you come to the end, if you have all 28 single crochets, if you're making the large, you'll come back here to the first single crochet you completed. So it's right there. And you will join with a slip stitch. So I'm simply going to put my hook into that first single crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull my yarn through. So what I have here, you can see I have single crochets worked all the way around my cuff, and I have a cuff that now, if I wanted, it fits perfectly right onto my hand. You see that? That's also a great finish, you guys, for a coffee cuff. You could do one over here also, and it gives a nice little finish. Okay, you with me so far? Now, this first round of single crochets you've done, that's the only round of single crochet you'll do because the rest of the pattern is worked up with half double crochets, which are, you know, very nice stitches. I like working up half double crochets. Also, they work up rather quickly, okay? So here we go. When you're working half double crochets, we're going to start off with a chain 2. And the pattern tells us that our chain 2 is not going to count as a stitch. So we do not want to count our chain 2 as a stitch when we are counting our stitches. Sorry, I was looking for another stitch marker. Usually I have them. Here we are. Okay, make sure I have one here. So I will begin with the chain 2, and I will put 1 half double crochet in each one of these stitches. So I will just work a half double crochet into each single crochet all the way around. All right, it's fairly easy. Here's a little tip. If on the first round, maybe you accidentally got like one stitch too short, you could always put 2 half double crochets somewhere to make up the stitch count difference if you want, if you didn't want to have to rip out your work, or you didn't want to have to cram too many single crochets into your ribbing. It makes it pretty easy just to do that. You guys see that? I mean, it's fairly easy. And when we get to the end here, we're going to do a slip stitch into that first half double crochet right there. Okay, so there's my half double crochet. I'm going to check out the time I have. Perfect. I'm going to keep going here. Some more yarn. And while I'm doing these half double crochets, I'm going to ask Bianca how you guys are handling this. I can't really see the questions as I'm crocheting, guys. That's why I'm asking Bianca for help.
Yeah. I have a great comment here from Kath. She says, it's so nice to know it does not have to be perfectly done.
No.
I very much agree.
No, it does not. I mean, make it work. Nobody is going to look at your mittens and count your stitches and be like, oh, you're one off. Like, seriously? And like, that's just not going to happen.
Absolutely. Also wondering here, do you have any tricks of how to keep the cuff even? Saya says, my foundation row is always large, and as I progress, the fabric starts to angle in, getting smaller.
I do have a tip for that. So I'm going to show you on this, okay? So we're going to pretend we were going to go, like this is our ribbing, okay, our cuff. What you want to do, as you get more and more comfortable making the cuff, what you tend to do is you come up and you keep these stitches really tight, okay? And that makes the cuff get smaller and smaller. So what you can do is when that loop is on your hook, take a minute and bring your hook parallel to the next stitch. See how that made that it made it the same size as the stitch below? Because this is your final, like the V on top, that's what that loop is on your hook. So if you bring your hook essentially parallel before you go into the back loop and do your single crochet, look at that. I have a single crochet that is the perfect size. It's not too tight. So I bring it parallel, make sure that, you know, this is not snug, and then work my single crochet. You see that? That makes those stitches nice and perfectly even. Did that help? I'm going to undo those so I can show. That is such, and you know what? That is such a common problem. I want to point that out. Like, that happens to so many people. And it really is just because you're getting so comfortable with your stitches. I mean, the same thing can be said here. Like, you'll notice I always kind of come in and just make sure that my stitches are even. Like, I make sure my loop is not too tight where it's, oh, I'm accidentally doing a single crochet, where it's not too tight that I am making my stitches abnormally pull in. Like, I just make sure that the loop on my hook is the same size as the stitch I'm working into. So that works for, I mean, all cases. Another thing you could do, if you guys notice, I tend to grab the base of my stitches as I pull through, and that's so that my stitches don't overextend as I'm making them. So that just helps your stitches stay nice and consistent also. So yeah, there's that. How was that? Was that a good little tip?
That's awesome. Yes. The
That's
crowd
really
agreed.
good too
Yeah.
if you're doing slip stitches around something, because we tend to make our slip stitches way too tight. And so it's good to always just make sure that that loop on your hook is the correct size it's supposed to be. I keep accidentally almost doing single crochets. I'm just going to get to the end here. I want to show you how this joins. I haven't even counted my stitches, so I have no idea how many stitches I have, but down here at the end, if I am using my stitch marker, which is so handy, I can see, okay, that's where I'm going to join with my slip stitch, completely ignoring those chain twos. And I just go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull that through. And now I've established my half double crochets, okay? So that chain two does not count as a stitch. Remember, it does not count as a stitch. Now, for this part of the pattern, it says you're supposed to repeat round two, one more time for the toddler, one more time for the kid size, but two more times for the adult. So I'm going to move this aside through the magic of television, guys. I tried to get as much done as possible since it's a short class. I wanted to make sure you got as much information as I possibly could. So look at this. I'm pulling from both ends of the same skein of yarn. It's just trying to keep it all attached. What I've done here is I've already, so this was my first round that I just, like I just did with you. This was my first repeat round. This would be my second repeat round. And I'm coming up to the end of it so that I can show you. And you can get these stitch markers at Michael's. They're just removable stitch markers, nothing really special about them. I will tell you, I do not recommend using safety pins, even though these look like safety pins. They do not have the coil at the bottom, so they will not snag your yarn. So, I mean, the last thing you want to do is spend all that time and money on yarn and making a project just to have one of the tools you're using snag your yarn, right? Like, that's no fun. All right, so as I'm coming up to the end, once again, there's my marked stitch. So I can go into the top of my half double crochet, make sure I'm in it. What in the heck? Okay, there we go. And work my slip stitch. Okay, see that? All right, now it is perfectly normal for your line to kind of go sideways. There's different ways that you can combat that, but that's a whole nother class. But I will let you guys know as you're crocheting along, don't be like, oh my gosh, something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. That's perfectly normal and natural, okay? All right, so let's take a quick look. So this is where I am. I just finished this and I'm getting ready to shape the thumb gusset. And if you don't know what a thumb gusset is, that is this portion here. It's the portion that starts to let the thumb come out, okay? So it's, if we were to cut this off like just there, it's this portion. And what we're going to do is, if we were to lay this flat, we come over here to, I'm out of frame. We come over here and at these 2 points, we're gonna increase stitches. We're gonna put 2 stitches into one and 2 stitches into one. And then when we come back around, I think we work something even, or I'm not sure yet, but and then you'll see there's 2 stitches into that one. And then there's 2 stitches into that one. So we're increasing out at these points, and that will give us an extra like triangle of fabric here that will make up the thumb. Okay, so that's what we're doing when they talk about the thumb gusset. So right here, we're gonna chain 2 to start, half double crochet in the next 13 for me. And then see how I said you would increase? So you have 2 half double crochets in each of the next 2. So that'll be my increase, all right? And that's where I'll also use stitch markers again. I like to put stitch markers on my increases. If you haven't picked up yet, I really like stitch markers. Too bad I don't have like stock or something in the company that makes stitch markers, but I just find them really, really super handy. All right, so we start off with our chain 2, and I'm still working half double crochets, and for me, I have to do 13. So this initial number is just going to place my gusset on the side of my hand, all right? That's why it's doing 13. It's getting me over there. So I got to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, oops, 8, 9, 10. Get some more yarn. 11, 12, and 13. Okay, so this is where the pattern says in the next 2 stitches, I'm going to work an increase by placing 2 half double crochets in each of the next 2. So in this next one, I'm going to put 2 half double crochets there. So there's 1, and that's the first one I'm going to mark. And I'm going to just mark the post. Notice I'm not marking the actual stitch. I'm not marking the top of the stitch. I'm just marking the post. I'll tell you why here in a minute. And then here's 2. The reason I mark it there is on the following round, I could mark the, I've always just marked the post. You could probably mark the stitch. I just marked the post. I don't know why. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. So there's 1 and then 2. How about in this one, we mark the actual stitch. So this one will mark the stitch. I'm going to mark the second one over here. And the reason I'm doing that is those are the stitches we're going to increase in. It's always over here on the outside. Like if we were thinking this as a triangle, it's going to be that stitch and that stitch. Okay, so I'll leave that one marked. And now I just half double crochet all the way around to the end. And you'll notice in the pattern, it'll tell you that you've just increased 2 stitches because you have. You've put those 2 stitches are now in place and they will become the thumb. Okay, because your hand, you guys know your hand comes out like this. Right? So we have to increase for this portion of our hand. It's just general human anatomy. And when I come back, now there are some patterns that are written where you work an increase round and then you work like a plain round, and then you work an increase round and then you work a plain round. For this particular pattern, it looks like we are going to increase on this next round also. So I only mention that, so if you happen to follow other patterns in the future and you're like, what Marley said, every pattern is written differently. Always make sure you just follow along with the pattern, but the general instruction are all the same, okay? So again, I'm going to join with a slip stitch to the top of my half double. I'm ignoring those chain 2s, okay? I'm going to come over here to the top of my half double and join with my slip stitch. So this would be round 2 of the thumb gusset. I'm starting off with my chain 2. Before I get too far, I'm going to get some yarn here so I don't have to constantly stop. And I'm going to try and get this going so you can see, guys. I'm trying really hard. All right. We're going to crochet like the wind, bullseye.
It's a quick question, Marley.
Yes.
Just wondering, so if the chain 2 does not count as a half double crochet, why the chain 2?
So when you crochet, all of our stitches are a different height. So we have to do some sort of a stitch to essentially like jump up. I often think of it as like stair stepping up. So you have to have some sort of a stitch to jump up to this next level. Now, you could get a little bit more advanced and you could do like a stacked, like if this was a double crochet, you do like a stacked double crochet. You could do an extended chain 1, or you could rewrite the pattern and make your chain 2 count as a half double crochet and then totally skip that first stitch. It's just the way the designer wrote the pattern. So did that answer your question adequately enough?
Yeah, so it's just a height thing, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, like it's just like with any pattern, when you go to the next row of something, especially with crochet, you have to jump up to the next stair. And the number of turning chains or beginning chains you begin with all depend on the height of the row you're working on. And so a chain 2 is typically the correct height for a half double crochet. Now, I will be honest, in my own patterns, I like to do just a chain 1 because I think it looks better, but that's me. I didn't write this pattern, so the person just who wrote it did a chain 2. And I mean, it doesn't look bad. It's just that it's there and you just don't count it as your stitch. Hopefully that answers. That's a clear as mud answer, right? It's like, because the pattern is written that way, but you don't have to do it that way. It's like, oh, okay, whatever, Marley. All right, so here we are. We're coming up to, I guess I could have marked my stitch. I don't know why I always mark just the post. So that was my 13. So here's the post I marked, which this is the stitch. And this is where I would do 2 half doubles right here again. So I could do the first one, and I'm gonna go ahead, I'll move this up and I'll put it into the actual stitch this time. And then I will just do basic half double crochets over the next 2. So there's 1 and 2. And then in this next one, I'll do 2 half doubles again. And I will mark the second one, just like I did last time. Let me see here. I keep splitting my yarn. I don't know why I'm doing that today. All right. So I would mark this here. And then once again, so can you see how that fabric is starting to get a little bit wider? So if I were to put this down, see how it's coming out just a little bit there? So I'm starting to get a little nubbin of a hand thumb area. And then let's see here. So then I'm gonna half double crochet back around. So I'm gonna get to the end here again. And then on the following round, once again, you would increase right here again and increase right here again. Does that make sense to everybody? Like I know we're running close on time here and I wanna make sure like I look at the pattern for the rest of it because I want you to see how this would go. What I'm thinking I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna get to the end of this row. We're gonna talk about what you would do to finish up the thumb. And then I want to show you on the sample here how you would transition out of those gusset stitches to be working just basically back in the round again. And once you can do that, I really think like the rest of the pattern should be fairly easy for you to finish up if you are comfortable reading patterns. We're gonna talk about this real quick, okay? How does that sound to you, Bianca? Does that sound good?
That sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I'm pretty confident in what you got. I mean, you guys' skills, you can totally do this. I know you can do this. All right. So I'm going to bring this over. You can see here on the next round, again, you know, you just think you half double your 13 and then 2 half doubles. So it'd be 2 half doubles in your marked stitch and then half double crochet over again to your next marked stitch and do 2 half doubles, right? See how I didn't really have to like read the pattern because I've already marked those thumb stitches. So I'm like, oh, I know where I'm going to increase. I have no problem. Then in the adult size only, you would do that again. Okay, so in the adult size, you have 1 more. Then right here, for all of the sizes, chain 2, 1 half double crochet in each of the next 14. So see, that's 1 stitch over. So that brings me all the way over to my marked stitch. And then I would chain 2, place a marker on the second chain, skip the next 8 half double crochets. So those are the 8 half double crochets we increased. That's what those are, okay? Then it says 1 half double crochet in each half double crochet to the end of the round. So essentially what we're doing, you guys, think about this. When we started this thumb gusset, we had 28 stitches, and then we worked an increase, and then we worked an increase. And if you continued working increases, we would have increased a total of 8 stitches between these markers, okay? So on that row I just read, what it's telling us is, okay, we don't want to increase anymore. So what I will have you do is half double crochet all the way over, including the one you have marked. And then we're going to absolutely ignore all the ones you've built between this marker and this marker. We're going to ignore them. And I'm going to have you chain 2. And then I'm going to have you start crocheting right there. And then we're back in the round again. So on the following round, what will happen is you'll work into those chain 2s. And these chains out here are just going to be hanging out willy-nilly, just waiting for a thumb to be made. Does that make sense? I'm going to show you how that's done really quickly. So we are jumping all the way to that part so you can see how that would happen. Because once you get past that, then it's just the rest is just shaping the top of the mitten, which is pretty relatively easy. You should be able to do that. I will show you how to do a half double crochet 2 together to finish. All right, so I'm going to just half double crochet into 14 stitches because remember, it's essentially you're going all the way over to where the marked stitch is if you're using that marker. So if you don't want to count, just use that marker and that will let you know. I'm curious how many of you have used markers before, or how many of you are watching me use markers and are like, I've got to get me some markers because they make life so much easier, in my opinion. Like it just makes it so great. Oh, good. I see that everybody else says they use them too. You know what? I mean, they're there just to be a tool, a useful tool for us. Useful tool. And I mean, if you get really into it and you're into like jewelry work, there's also, you can make homemade markers, and those are a lot of fun. All right, so I'm going to take that marker out. This is where it would be. So this is my 14th stitch. This is where I would chain 2. So chain 1 and chain 2. And what did that say? It said to mark the second one. I just want to make sure I'm following it right. Chain 2, place a marker in the second chain. So I'm going to place a marker into the second chain because the pattern actually told me to. So I'm going to place a marker into the second chain. Then it said to skip 8 stitches. Well, I don't have my 8 stitches there, remember, because I skipped those rows. So I'm going to pretend we're skipping 8 stitches. Then it says one half double crochet in each of the stitches to end. Well, essentially, I'm going to come over here to where my other marked stitch is, and I'm going to remove that marker. This is the side, this is the row that would be like if you were done with all of the thumb gusset stitches, okay? So I'm pretending that I finished all my thumb gusset stitches. And now I just half double crochet all the way to the end. So if I had all of my thumb gusset stitches completed, you guys, what would happen here, my yarn is getting caught up, is you can kind of see it here. See how it's kind of bulging out there just a little bit? Obviously, if I had 8, I'd have a lot more, and that's where your thumb would fit in, is right there, okay? And so on the following row, what you're going to do, if we were on the next row, okay, so we would join with our slip stitch, we'd half double all the way over. When we get to where these chains are, you actually put a half double crochet in each one of these chains, okay? You guys see how that works? So you would half double crochet all the way over to 14 half double crochets, and then you'd half double crochet in each of the next 2 chains, and then you would continue on working all the way around. All right? From that point, I'm going to bring this thing in because this will be easier to show you how to do the half double crochet 2 together. Then you would carry on, you know, following the pattern until the mitten itself measures the distance you want it to measure. And then when you're shaping the top of the cup, as I'm looking at the pattern, the only thing you might not know how to do is a half double crochet 2 together. So I want to show you how to do that, okay? So we're going to pretend we're going to do a half double crochet 2 together. Hopefully that's a lot more clear now. So I've yarned over my hook. I'm going to go into the stitch, wherever the stitch would be for your half double crochet 2 together. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Pause there. Yarn over your hook. Go into the next stitch, you would do your half double crochet 2 together, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pause there. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on my hook. I will yarn over and draw through all 5 loops. And that's a half double crochet 2 together, okay? So then the pattern, however half double crochets you're supposed to do in between, you would work a couple, whatever that number is, and then you would do the half double crochet 2 together again. So let me show you. It's like I'm going to put these 2 together. So I'm going to yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go into the stitch. That's the next stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop. So I have 5 loops on my hook. Yarn over, draw through all 5 loops. Can you see that? And as you're working these, you're bringing the top of the mitten to a close. So you do want to make sure you're keeping these stitches nice and snug together. You don't want to keep them separated, okay? This is one of the times that you want your stitches tight. So as you're creating your half double crochets and you're bringing those stitches close together, you do want to make sure that those stitches are coming in nice and snug, okay? They don't have extra space, okay? You want them to be nice and snug. So if I was doing a half double crochet 2 together again, when I come to pull these together, see how my first loop here is still really nice and snug to that stitch over there? I do not want it Let me show you. I can undo it all. The last thing I want is for this one to be like that, and then start my half double crochet 2 together, and I'm going to show you why. If I do that and bring it, see how that big gap is there, and I'm not bringing the stitches actually closer together. So if you keep that first loop on your hook really snug as you're doing your decreases, it makes the top of your mitten close together really well. And when you get to just a few stitches at the top, you finish off your work and you just seam up the top closed. When it comes over here for the thumb, you would come back over here to where, let's see here, where is it? Oh, that's not this one, it's this one. You'd come back over here and you join with a slip stitch, okay? You join with the slip stitch where the marker is, and then you would just create stitches around here and just work around following the pattern to create the thumb. I mean, it's fairly simple. Don't overthink it. And remember, I mean, it's crochet, guys. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. So you just, put your stitches there and then follow the instructions. You can get a nice thumb. You see that? All these thumbs, they're all the same. They're just different sizes. Does that make sense? All right, how we doing?
We're doing great over here. I've learned so much, and I'm realizing that we're a couple minutes over time.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh no, I mean, I'm supposed to be looking at the time here, but
time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys want to go back to my face real quick, or do you just want to look at the mittens? You can look at the mittens, it's fine. Do want to mention that those of you, if you've never made mittens before or anything like that, I do want to mention that, you know what, give yourself a little bit of grace. They might not be perfect the first time around, and your second mitten might look a heck of a lot better than the first. Then you just make a third, all right? You just make a third, rip out that first one, and call the cuff your little coffee cup, okay? That's your little coffee cup cuff. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So it's totally all right. If your first mitten is like, oh my gosh, I can't gift this to anybody, but your second one looks really great. Your third one's gonna look even better, and it'll probably match up better to your second one. And so you could give that away as a gift. My point here is give yourself some grace. It's going to get easier as time goes on. Look at the pattern, rewatch this video, use my little tips that I told you about keeping the stitches tight together when you're decreasing, or if you don't want to decrease, you want to keep things consistent, make sure that the loop on your hook is the same size as the stitch you're working into. That's a great way to do that. And then obviously the tools, your stitch markers are going to be super handy when you're working through this. Yeah, that's what I got. I mean, hopefully you guys like this. I mean, give me a thumbs up. How many of you are like, I'm gonna make these? Oh, good. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs. Oh, that makes me so happy, you guys. Seriously, it really does. I love it. I do want to mention there are other classes that are happening here on Michael's classroom and all through the I Love Yarn Day. So if you want to check those out, there's still time to go and check those out. I have one more class coming up this afternoon. If you want to join me once again, and yeah, that's where I am. Anything else y'all need to know? You're good?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys.